Both autotrophs and heterotrophs need ATP for energy. You now know that cellular respiration is the process that produces that ATP, so therefore, autotrophs and heterotrophs must both run cellular respiration. Heterotrophs get the glucose for this process by consuming other organisms.
That's why Sasha needs a rat, right, Sasha? Oh, yes, Sasha's so hungry. Right, Sasha? Oh, yeah, say hi. Ooh, want some rats now? Gotta make some ATP?
Meanwhile, Sasha's friend, the peace lily, can run photosynthesis to make its own glucose before breaking it down. While heterotrophs are like a couple that goes out to the restaurant to eat dinner, letting other people prepare the meal, autotrophs are like the couple that stays home, cooks their own meal, and then enjoys it. Cellularly, this means that both autotrophs and heterotrophs need mitochondria to run cellular respiration. But autotrophs need an additional tool called the chloroplast, which runs photosynthesis, the process by which the glucose is made in the first place. Chloroplasts, like mitochondria, are rather complex organelles filled with many internal membranes. But these membranes increase the efficiency of this organelle because they allow for a lot of surface area for photosynthesis to take place. For example, there is one really important molecule that's found along the outside of each of these membranes that causes the chloroplast overall to look green, and it is called chlorophyll. And, technically there are several types of chlorophyll, like chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, but they similarly function to absorb the energy in sunlight. And they're both good at getting different wavelengths of energy. So for example, the short wavelengths, the purple wavelengths of light, are absorbed very well by chlorophyll A, as are the long red wavelengths of light. And then chlorophyll B is able to absorb the blue wavelengths of light in addition to some of the orange wavelengths of light, leaving, you might notice, the green wavelengths of light which come reflecting back to our eyes, and that's what makes plants look green. So chloroplasts are filled with chlorophyll, a pigment that captures the energy in sunlight. So then what does the chloroplast do with that sunlight energy? Well, exactly the reverse that the mitochondria did. It takes in H2O as a reactant, not a product, as well as CO2. This is why you need to water your plants, by the way. And then as the atoms in these molecules are rearranged, energy is captured from the sunlight by the chlorophyll molecules, which are right down here, and then put into the bonds of the newly forming molecules, namely the sugar, which we know is called glucose. A final byproduct of this reaction is oxygen, which we need in order to complete our cellular respiration. So we're dependent on plants in two ways, one for our source of sugar, the other for our source of oxygen. The plants will then take this glucose and oxygen and either store it away for later or send it right over to their mitochondria to break it back down and make ATP, if the plant is having a busy, workful day. So, must-knows about photosynthesis. Well, again, you have to know the equation in both words and symbols. So 6CO2 plus 6H2O turns into C6H12O6 plus 6O2. In other words, carbon dioxide plus water makes glucose and oxygen. You have to know that this occurs in the chloroplasts of the plant cells, and that the chloroplasts capture the light energy using chlorophyll and put it into the glucose. And just like with cellular respiration, this doesn't require high temperatures because it's sped up by enzymes. And then lastly, this makes a boatload of glucose for the autotroph and heterotrophs that eat it. Typo fail. These tiny molecular processes have a big impact on the way life exists on Earth. They drive the way that matter cycles. For example, the same atoms that are used by photosynthesis in water and carbon dioxide molecules get given off in the form of sugar and oxygen. And those same atoms are then taken up by mitochondria again, broken back down into carbon dioxide and water, and the cycle begins again. So the same 14-billion-year-old atoms have been used over and over again for the running of photosynthesis and cell respiration since the beginning of life. And as the matter cycles in a circular fashion, the energy flows. Light energy is captured by plants running photosynthesis and then trickles up from the plants to the animals that consume them, to the animals that consume them, into the decomposers that eat all the dead living things on this planet. And at each stage, a little bit more of that energy is released as heat from the bodies of organisms until eventually that energy disperses as heat into space. So energy flows in a single direction from the form of light to the form of heat, whereas matter cycles over and over again. And those huge trends in organisms and in the biosphere happen because of these tiny molecular processes, cellular respiration and photosynthesis. How cool is that?